Hi, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good timings. Thank you all for joining us and on this specific and distinguished moment that we're attending with our lovely authors, speakers, presenters on behalf of Women Ed MENA. I would like to welcome you all. Also to welcome my colleagues for giving us this opportunity. Women Ed MENA is part of Women Ed International Organization based in UK, hoping that we encourage women to develop their educational skills. This is part of our yearly scholarly event, which we're so happy, me personally, to be part of this and to speak, to launch one of our amazing books that we started along with the previous years. Prof. Khaled Arar, Dr. Rida, Dr. Corinne, and myself, we were so happy to be part of this contribution to the field and also to women in specific. We're so happy to start this discussion. We'll start introducing ourselves. Prof. Khaled Arar, if you'd like to introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is Professor Khalid Arar, and my research, I'm based at Texas State University at the College of Education School Improvement Doctoral Program. And my research covers the nexus of educational leadership and K-12 higher ed in terms of equity, diversity, and inclusion. I've been researching gender and education, and recently, in the last decade, I've been covering the issue of refugees into education, both in K-12 and higher ed. And I'm happy to meet you here and discuss our new book, Women in Education and Community Leadership.
Hello, hi everyone. As the title says, across the globe, so hello to you across the globe. My name is Rida Blake Hourani. I'm an associate professor. Currently, I'm in Bahrain, Teachers College, University of Bahrain. And my area of specialization is relevant to policy and management and educational leadership. I've been working with several projects related to school reform in the Middle East. Previously, I was a school teacher where I spent my praxis there. And my research focus mainly is on educational leadership, policy, transformation, sociology of education, and social justice. And I'm keen to be here with the lovely team and their contributions towards promoting the voices of women across the globe.
Thank you, Rida. Corinne?
Greetings, I'm Corinne. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Dayton in Ohio. And my research interests are around, well, first of all, the framework for all my research is cultural proficiency in order to reach equity, diversity, and inclusion. And I have two lines of inquiries. One is women in position of leadership, formal or not, and how they navigate culture wherever they are in the world. I work primarily on this line of inquiry in Africa. And then the second line of inquiry is around adult and student development. And so that has a branch of subtopics around that, but nice to be here.
Thank you, Corinne. Unfortunately, Dr. Trista was not able to join us today. She's a pra-academic. She tries her best to combine between research policy and practice. She's a former teacher, vice principal, and also she has many contributions as she's currently the director of ARC Education Project and many other roles. For me, myself, I would like also to highlight that I'm mother of 5 amazing children, adults, as some of them are currently studying in university. I have a PhD in education leadership. I'm honored to be co-founder of Women Ed MENA and many other initiatives. Currently, I work in Children's Museum in Qatar. So we are so excited to start discussing and talking about how we started this journey of writing this book. So we will give an overview of the context, the scope, and then we will go by some of the chapters, sharing some key highlights and highlight some key messages. So who would like to start? Our context and scope.
I don't mind starting. Dr. Khalid, Professor Khalid.
Okay, yeah, so this, as far as to researching women into educational leadership, for me, this was really the start of my research in 2016, like going back to even 2003, when I stepped forward for a position of educational leadership of one of the schools back in where I grew up. There were also women candidates, and I think that they made good, but the discourse that was around that women cannot lead a high school, and this, like, interrogated me and the way I saw, women presence in education and contribution. And this made me, start the first days of, like, acquiring why. Why in terms of culture? Why in terms of the hidden discourse? Why in terms of norms? Why in terms of educational institutions and all the praxis around? So this is where I started. So I published few papers on women in education and leadership, where data collected, especially in Palestine, and about women in education there. I tried and started, like, to widen my scope, and started also to explore what's going on in other Arab countries and in the Arab world. And there I published, like, few papers, like analyzing the scholarship, and also I collected data from Palestine, Jordan, women in 1948, and also some data from Gaza, exploring, women into education and leadership. And from there, I started to, so I published a book about their stories, a co-authored book, back in 2013 in Belgrade. And then this is where this whole scholarship of following both challenges, pathways, contributions, and empowerment of a woman into education, and the gifts that they bring to this, space. So Rania and I launched 3 years ago now, launched a group of scholars discussing, like, this education disruption in the COVID. And this was one of the scopes that we started to look at, women into education and leadership. And then we started to collect a group of scholars, just like, that they've been researching women into education and leadership. Corinne brought, her, different valuable, insights and data from Africa. I brought insights both from women in the Arab world and in North America. Rania brought different insights from the Arab world, and similarly, Rida also brought, data from different, world corners, from Australia, Middle East, and the Mediterranean. And then we started as a group, including also Trista, compiling, some of the data that she explored also throughout her, a practice or para-academic lens. So this is where we started. We started on discussing both the road to leadership for women the pathway, the challenges, the strengths, the features of women into leadership, and their contribution. So we saw that, you know, as Michael Fullan put it, give me a school and I can change the whole village, that their contribution goes beyond the school space, you know, and they are like community, and the seeds that they put there in community in improving and empowering others were, you know, evident. So we started to shift the lens from the school space, the school system, and their attainment of, you know, educational leadership, to their contributions, to the gift that they bring to the community. So I'd like to stop here. And yeah, my colleagues can also like add, you know, comment. This is the way how we started. So we've been in a dialogue, a 2 years dialogue that ended up with like writing this book.
It's interesting, you know, how just to go back and remember all these kind of adventures and the stories behind the scene.
Yeah.
Yes, Rida.
Yes.
Yes, hello. I would like to mention here, to reiterate to what Dr. Professor Khalid has mentioned, that this happened in the midst of COVID. And we were very desperate and under pressure and tension and not used to this virtual thing, and we made it happen. Also, I would like to emphasize that the context of this book focuses also on what is the dilemma, or what we call the binaries and dualism of formal and informal leadership models. Like how women lead formally and informally in their formal positions, official positions, career-wise, and domestically as well, within their environments, within their communities. And the practices they bring are not necessarily being leaders, however, practicing leadership in the ethos, in the way they demonstrate and make things functional and happen. Also, the book, the context of the book brings the voices across an intersection between the public sector and the private sector, where both the private and the public are elevated by women, by women's efforts, by women's achievements to improve the community, both on a public level and on a private level, domestically, officially, formally, and informally. So there are binaries of combinations where women are mobilizing and functionalizing and moving ahead. Also, the context also focuses on how women demonstrate themselves as collective leaders, whether in the school environment, the higher education environment, or even community environments. Also, what enriched the whole thing is that we brought the voices from different areas. However, the core of the cause, if you wish to say, was these women who were marginalized, or they were empowered or marginalized, and at the same time empowering the other. And that, I think, brings the book into a different level of narrative. I enjoy the exploration journey of these women who were moving from their very private life of inhibitions to escalate a power and empower themselves. And as they were empowering themselves, they were also empowering the community, the woman, and probably other people around that circle as well. Yeah. So it's beyond the lens of gender. It's more of bringing or highlighting the community aspect that women are voicing to move on for improvement and for transformation. Yeah.
It's really interesting, you know, how we take it further, and we still can share some of the moments, you know, like on top of the mountains and middle of the nights, and on all occasions we were just sharing ideas and trying to
And the
capture
time
some.
differences. I
Yep.
mean, I remember at a certain time you were in Turkey. I was in Australia in Melbourne. Someone else was at the other part of the continent, and we still had to find a common time. And I think that what brought the spirit of that book into fruition, I think.
Yep, Corinne.
Yeah, if I can add about the process, I think I'm tagging along what Dr. Rita is saying here. But I think for me was my first contribution to, besides book chapter, to a whole book. So and Dr. Khalid really was essential in the conceptualization of the book, but also the process where, okay, you may write mainly just one chapter, but you're going to read the whole book, and we're going to meet at different time zone in different country and communicate through, we all have different native tongues, but English was our common one. And so we brought all those rich experiences and data sets and somehow combine it in this wonderful book. And I think for me was not just about the writing and the collaboration that was totally exquisite and supportive, but it was also about how to bring a team together from across the globe, write about it, go through iterations, and all of that in a supportive, non-competitive environment, which as a 10-year professor was a little bit different from me than what I'm used to. So I really appreciate it.
Definitely, there are lots of moments that we can discuss in depth and share. For me personally, the idea of moving away from the traditional feminist scope, that was really something that we need to highlight, just to look and explore in a fresh lens what exactly the need and the challenges that women face while they're trying to practice leadership in the real or authentic situations that they're having, and different concepts and whatever decisions that they're facing or choosing or selecting within their lives. If we will go to the epistemologies and chapter presentations, Dr. Khalid, do you like to talk about our methods, our epistemology?
Yeah, so this research, you know, like heavily is based on narrative research, where we used the guidelines of Jessison into digging into women's story and looking throughout their lifespan path, if I can call it, where the seeds of leadership started, how they positioned themselves, how they inserted their eye in the space of, like, in the private sphere, in the family sphere, and also in the public sphere. So this was like one insight that we needed to look at. The other insight, where they got their support throughout lifespans, you know, and it seems that the most of support and empowerment came from, mostly from their mothers. So mothers were there to support, you know, their endeavor. And we could see in some of the interviews, where does it go back to, you know, the childhood or the teenager, with one of, I can recall, like, one of the interviewee stood in front of this system, you know, trying to advocate for demonstrating and, you know, collecting, you know, boys in her teenage. And then she's being called to the school principal's office for like sitting for a kind of like punishment. So this is where she inserted her eye, and we move from this, let's say, like childhood of empowerment and how she navigates this throughout the public sphere, starting from the education system where she grew up in, and what were the different levels of advocacies that this women, and the pathway that they choose, and what were the compromises. Because you know, in a Western gender binary lens, the way we see women empowerment is different from other spaces in the world. And if the Western theorizing of a binary gender lens can capture, I don't know, 10% of the Anglophonic, world, there is the rest of the world. So cultural lens were there. We try to understand, different cultural dynamics and lens. And when I say dynamic, it is changing, it's evolving, and where each of these women grew up and how she navigated this social context and proceeding, and what were the challenges and what are the lessons learned from these women into navigating these challenges up to the level of attaining leadership. And as Reda just said, we did not look into educational leadership as a school principalship. No, our lens were wider. We tried to capture leadership in different formal and informal organizations, in different public and private sectors, and how women, navigated these spaces and contributed to their community. So this was, let's say, beyond the conventional lens of looking into women educational leadership and their immediate contribution to their institutions and to people. So we looked into how they contribute to people, how they contribute to community, how they contribute to context, and what are the lessons learned, and what is the role that they are acting, some of them up to level of mentoring other women into the process of empowerment and attaining of leadership positions. I would like to stop here so that my colleagues also.
Before you all comment, I just would like to emphasize that we're currently posting via Facebook, and I will be following with comments either from attendees or from whoever is joining us via the live streaming. So I will try to catch up with some of the questions that we might receive.
Okay.
And it was really interesting, how it had evolved, having different voices, as Corinne had mentioned, working to collect the data and then coming together to start from some scripts or some information from those interviewees, to develop a chapter, then to combine the whole book and to evolve into themes, and then to a model that we will be discussing shortly. Who would like to comment, Rida, Corinne?
I want to say the epistemology really captured versatility and diversity, not only that is pertained to the authors, but also for the participants, the interviewees. Also, it captured, the background of these epistemologies stemmed from our different experiences, and it reflected, like, personally speaking, mine came or stemmed out my survival of 17 years of a civil war, and then moving as an immigrant with a refugee husband and children who were stateless. and that reflected the experiences of women who are related to these experiences. Thus, the epistemologies were beyond space and time, which enriched the later on the narratives of these ladies and the lens of their voices. Also, it's very important to say that this diversity has stemmed from our different experiences, which built a mosaic of epistemologies, if you wish to say, and that was very special, even in the narratives that showed later on in various chapters. Yeah.
Yes, Corinne.
No, I think they've said it all.
No, we know that there are many things, even when we were selecting some of the comments at the beginning, it were like lengthy ones. And then when we were hesitant to delete some of them because we felt that everyone is so precious and we don't want to lose, or we want the readers to go through each, like those moments or precious kind of narratives that we wanted really to share. So we ended up having 8 chapters. Giving with the introduction, the conclusion, and we have the space, place, role, and change. We will just go through quickly. We're talking also about enhancing social justice change. We're talking about collective leadership, women and power dynamic. We also discuss a new wave of women education leadership, and then the empowerment model that we will be discussing and emphasizing with the concluding thoughts and the future recommendations. So we're ready to start with the first one. We're happy also to emphasize that Dr. Khalid had also mentioned, most of those stories were all emphasizing motherhood. So we came up with trying to redefine motherhood and education leadership, and highlighting that also motherhood could be part of women education leadership practices. We also discussed women and types of displacement. So it was not only about the place, it was sometimes about displacement in selecting their majors or their studies, displacement in the job itself. They were not happy about being able to work in specific places or having no choice to join them. And we also introduced women entrepreneurship. So we'll be starting with perspectives, women empowerment.
Can I add one more thing, that these 3 themes that Rania has mentioned really overlapped. They weren't like structured in boxes. They really overlapped and intersected, and they underpinned really multi-dimensional issues, like with motherhood and time, the role of the working woman, the role of the support she gets, or the amount of support. So these 3 big discoveries under the themes underpinned really very complex, multi-dimensional concerns, issues, and perspectives.
Yeah. So thank you, Rida, for like inserting this. So I will give a kind of like scope before I dig, specifically in chapter 1. So this book brings, voices of women educational leadership and draw upon our diverse perspectives and the environment that they embrace, and the different, leadership styles that, they try to manifest. And, within the book, we have stories of women from the Middle East, West Africa, Europe, and Australia, as I emphasized. And I think this is one of the rarely book that covered, this word corner, along together, which is just connect to what Rida just, emphasized. And we tried also to humanize the educational leadership, research, as Rania said, in looking into the childhood, the motherhood, the multi-level of talents that women leader, possesses, their identities, and how they model these identities throughout their leadership and throughout transforming, others, including, their communities. And in the book, we present their narratives, their voices. So our voices as scholars, we're just capturing this reality, and we are emphasizing their voices. So in this regard, this book moves beyond the traditional feminist perspective, where women develop their identity in relation to men and equal working condition. So we've been looking, at the beyond, where we understand culture and context, where these women act in order to offer a window into women's educational leadership in different cultures and in different, societies, as I want to insert. So having in one book, women from Africa, Middle East, Europe, Australia, and West Africa insist having this lens and insist look throughout, their reality from post-Orientalist lens, if you want. And this is exactly what we used in our first chapter in looking into context, people, and communities throughout Edward Said's lens. So we try to shed the lights on the perspectives of traditional, that goes beyond the traditional feminist, gender binary perspective, and also to see these women's stories without, judging them or trying to evaluate them. So this is the reality that we tried, to capture. And also, before digging into this woman reality, we paused for the reader our epistemologies, who we are, where we grew, how this work relates to us, how do we perceive this reality, and what are our lens, in doing this type of research. Then we move to understand also the space, the place, and the change that women, up to ending up with providing a woman educational leadership model, looking into the beyond, the system that they are leading. So in our participants, as far as the participants, this book presents the stories of 41 participants, and I think this is one of the strengths of this book, including bringing these stories from different, world corners. And the countries that we represented in this book are 14 countries, 14 contexts, 14 cultural, features. As far as to the first chapter, and then I will stop here, we try to look into this space on where these women are leading and how they navigated this space on their place on, in the private sphere, their place on the public sphere, and their role and the change that they are leading. And then immediately in chapter 3, we started to speak about how women enhancing social justice and, change throughout these different, systems and throughout their community. And I will stop here so my colleagues can collaborate and also elaborate, on these chapters and also on other chapters.
Yeah,
Okay.
Corinne, you wanted to comment on something before we proceed for the chapters, please?
Yes, and agreed, of course, with my colleagues. And I think the word that comes to mind for me, and we did a great job at it, is we really, within all those women and that large sample, we really also looked at intersectionality, because there was not just race, it was about, of course, gender, socioeconomic status, and religion, across religions. And I think that that's important work that we did, that is part of our lens.
Yeah, I can't agree more. Just also part of that when we described our epistemologies, because I think researchers might be attending or reviewing this, also non-academic or practitioners. Many would be just hearing those kind of comments, which would benefit everyone according to the angle that they will be looking from, or the lens that they will be hearing this review or launching of the book. So it's really important just to understand that we did not only take the stories out of the context, we really emphasized or tried to understand the context and to see how to, highlight the needs of those women, or to shed light on those kind of stories. However, many times we were discussing, and Rida, you can remind me, when we personally would start reflecting and saying, oh my God, this is exactly, what we might be facing, or we might continuously be hearing. So this is something might be a nice transition for chapter 1, if you like to proceed.
Yeah. Can I also comment something here? Because of the multidimensional perspectives of the stories, it was really hard to box them and structure them in chapters under a certain title, because so many times we had to move one voice of a person from this chapter to the other, and then we thought, oh no, it belongs to the other chapter. And this shows that no one voice was reflecting one chapter. Even the chapters were overlapping in terms of the voices. And that's why it was really hard to capture the voice in terms of aligning it with the theme or the context of that chapter. And I think that was a very hard thing to me, because we didn't want to lose the organic features of these voices in boxing them in chapters that they don't belong to. And that's why we ended up with these chapters. In fact, probably we were planning on less chapters, but we ended up dissecting these voices in terms of, we want everything to be revealed in different chapters.
Yep, and that's why we started with having those kind of introductions. Do you like to start with before we proceed? Yep.
Yeah. So is that the introduction here?
Yeah.
So yeah, first of all, when we were thinking about women and empowerment, to me, what occurred to me in the beginning is their displacement, because some of these were living in diaspora, or were displaced geographically, or other sort of displacement, maybe an inner displacement, if you wish to say. Or being oppressed in one way or another, or the political or socio-political system was causing certain inhibitions. So this created a displacement. So displacement wasn't in our mind as only a displacement of the place. It was a displacement of the self. It's the displacement of the inner self and discovering the inner self. And that was really hard to write in the beginning, in the introduction, and in chapter 1, I think, when we talked about, or probably 2, I can't remember, maybe chapter 2, when we talked about the displacement in general. So when we were talking about displacement, we did not mean only a geographical one. And that's why we had to align it with several perspectives, literature-wise. And the journey of self-exploration was aligned with these displaced women's voices. leading to transformation. So here in that chapter, I think it was chapter 2, there was a triangulation between the displacement of women, regardless what was the nature of this displacement, the self-exploration leading to an empowerment of the self, and the journey of empowering the self and the other. And to me, that chapter was amazing, and probably it took so many times of revisions, if I remember, Rania, because we were really scrutinizing these voices in terms of what is a displacement. And then here the issue of, not the issue, the idea of motherhood, which Rania brought up, that she was so keen that motherhood can be a one layer of that chapter, and the multiple roles that women play. And it's not about playing the role, it's the inhibitions that women face as they play these roles. What a woman faces at work as she plays the role of a mother, a career lady, a leadership, demonstrating, again, I would say, when we're not talking about leaders, we're talking about how they demonstrate themselves as leaders, which is different than the leadership per se. And the model that she demonstrates as being a mother at home. I don't know if anyone would like to add anything here, but I really enjoyed this chapter big time. It made me self-reveal and self-reflect and introspect about what I've been through as a mother, a working woman in schools, in higher ed. Also, I was sort of reflecting on what others were saying, the voices of other women that I learned from. And that chapter in particular was it was a learning experience for us as writers, I think, and for the audience who will read it eventually and probably transmit that image of self-empowerment to others. And I think that is the significance of it, the process of self-empowerment across the road and across the globe.
And I think before, like we proceed for Dr. Khalid and Corinne's comment, it was kind of an aha moment. Like we always have those feelings, but to see them into writing and into chapters and evolving into kind of clear concepts, that was for us is so enlightening and kind of happiness. Yes, finally we can describe it and we can categorize it in a way so that women can be proud of what they're achieving and what they're doing without underestimating their role or thinking, no, I need to do something else. One of the interviewees, when she used to mention, when anyone would ask her, what is your job? She would say CEO at home. So that's something, sometimes we just miss, or we need, we highlight that you should go outside your homes or your norms and start thinking differently. Dr. Khalid, Corinne, if you'd like to highlight on.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. My participant also talked about the wife's chores. So similarly, I think it goes back to that intersectionality and belonging to so many different cultures, their mom, their sisters, their wife, their colleagues, leaders. And I love what you said about Rita, about self-displacement, because it really made me reflect on my privilege some more. It's something I do all the time. But I mean, I was with women leaders in Ghana, and the conditions for their work are so different than when I was a principal in a school in the United States, and what they have to go through just to get to school, just the journey to school. And so their strength, it was just humble moments and hours after hours, but also learned so much about leadership that's not in the textbook. As a former school leader myself, it's not textbook knowledge, it's the cultural knowledge, it's how you navigate all those logistical cultural issues and be a great leader. So It was not just fun, but an amazing learning experience.
Dr. Khalid?
Yeah, no, I think they both Reda and Karini quite captured what we mean by this. So yeah, I would not add anything here. Yeah.
Yeah, and also, if you'd like to highlight is the political leaders or the religious leaders in many conservative Arab societies about their status, their role, in addition to how they think of women leadership or women's role or women's contributions or their professional progression. So there are many things that we found kind of overlapping, regardless of the place. It's not only for the Arab societies, but also that goes for different cultures, different contexts of how some policies might affect the role and the contribution and even the woman identity itself.
Very true what you've said, Rania, except I think there is a little corner that probably in our next book we will talk about it. It's how the lack of policies of supporting women needs improvement, which the interviewees have mentioned, but they did not elaborate on that as such as policies. But they talked about the system changes and what systems needed to give them more, not freedom, but more space, I would say.
And that also connected to the chapter when we described about women edu-entrepreneurship, where
Yes.
their displacement also had empowered them or enabled them to find opportunities in the middle of crisis. So that's something also, and how they beautifully connected into kind of educational opportunities. So some of them were describing how they tried to open a catering kind of a project while they had been forced to move to another country, but they also made it kind of a cultural kind of a catering project where they started to share some of their back home recipes or heritage or cultural recipes. So they wanted to keep this identity wherever that they're moving to the new or the next generations. So yes, it could be entitled as a business or as a startup or as a entrepreneurial kind of a project, but it's also part of educational and cultural contribution that they are helping and saying or voicing. So those kinds, sometimes we focus on one aspect, but we neglect that they're contributing to education, informal or formal opportunities in different ways. Preload to change.
Also probably when we talk about the political perspective of these voices, we find that some of them were really talking about their experiences in attempting to change certain systems that were inhibiting them. And through their work as social workers or building the community through having their role being demonstrated through NGOs or a community service jobs. So here I want to reiterate that the book does not talk about ed leadership in terms of the school walls. It's more than this, and that's why we can see how it's beyond space, beyond time, and even beyond the mono role, if I can talk about the mono role of leadership here. Yeah.
And that's why Dr. Khalid also emphasized that it's community leadership. It's not only about and this is what we all had witnessed during COVID, when we all had recognized that education is not schooling, and schools need also to open for communities leaders so that they can contribute and enhance the education opportunities that we're having.
This brings us also to the Rania, to the trilogy that we use and like, you know, trying to figure, you know, what are the different, you know, aspects that this leadership is taking place, where like transforming starts from transforming people and transforming community, and of course transforming the organization and the organization, institution, and the intra-institution level. So the type of leadership is holistic, it is collective, and it, you know, starts and sparks from like agency of transformation.
Exactly, and that would take us also to the next point. Is it frozen, or did you complete, Dr. Khalid?
No, I'm completed. And so the way we looked into the self. We try to explore the self and the self-empowerment and the different facets of the self, and the political self, the cultural self, the biological self, and, you know, and then how they try to transform the space that they are acting in throughout this understanding of the self, and transforming and navigating the others throughout, you know, ecological understanding. Yeah.
So that was part of, you know, the collective leadership, as you had mentioned, regarding transformation or transformative or deconstructing kind of the various voices, or helping each other to re-see it from how the women contribute as collective leaders. And that would guide us to our model, where we emphasized self-empowerment, role modeling, mentoring, and ecological leadership.
Yeah, you can, yes, if you can, like Rania, if you can, like, you know, just like discuss the model in detail, because this is one of the you know, the, like, you know, let's say the main takeaways, you know, of the book, you know, like possible contribution on informing you know, leaders, both in different spaces, so, and like future leaders. So yeah, if you want to like elaborate and, you know, into the model.
Yeah, definitely. Before Rida might proceed also, but we were so happy while we were, you know, developing the analysis and the findings from the interviewees and their voices and experiences from those different countries, and to see how it's really helping us to start that whatever that they were contributing and describing, it started from self-empowerment, regardless of the obstacles, the challenges, the barriers that they face, the displacement, regardless of the type of displacement, and how they themselves acted as role models. However, not all of them were recognizing that they are role models. The being a mentor and helping to build capacities, and also for ecological leadership. Rida.
Here I want to go a little bit before that point to mention that these women have demonstrated themselves as collective leaders in terms of leading organizations, leading the people, and leading the community. And the triangulation of these three, as we were reflecting on, made us think of the different areas that the ecological model, I mean, stemming from this collective leadership came the model that is related to different areas of empowerment. And in the ecological one, we noticed that there was no system that was empowering them. The system was a built-in system, if we can go back to the model. So whenever we're talking about mentorship, they were building that mentorship to themselves and to others. They were role models, not knowing that they were role models. So they were not really, it was a very organic way of demonstrating their leadership. Also the self-empowerment. It wasn't coming from a system that was empowering them. They were doing it introspectively within themselves. And the ecological leadership also, they were practicing this through demonstrating their sense of community, their sense of affiliation to the society and their social responsibilities. So when we're talking about these, we want them to be aware of these 4 features of the ecological model. And we want the readers to keep in mind that these 4 perspectives were not stemming from a structured system. These women, or the woman, can build these inner powers within themselves, whether they role modeling or the mentorship or the self-empowerment or the ecological leadership. It's underpinned in themselves. And that comes from the self-confidence, from the role models that mothers and other leaders maybe are demonstrating. I may be mistaken in interpreting the model, but I'm not sure.
We wrote the book, Rida. It's not kind of,
you know, it had been a while. So
no.
when I was thinking of these 4 perspectives, I was thinking the voices have made us believe in these 4 different perspectives that we wanted to bring on board and make it the plank for the future readers.
And while we're encouraging the readers or whoever is interested and watching this recording or with us now, it's just so important that for every single interviewee that had been interviewed, this was not a linear process. It was a different kind of mechanism that they had developed to survive in every context that they faced, in every situation that they came up to as a problem solving, or as we described also in the book, design as a think as a designer, where they continuously will start re-evaluating the resources that they have, the new place that they have, the new spaces that they have, and even for themselves. So they might start with a perspective about what is their role, but if they evolve and if they grow and go to a different place, either by their choice or they are forced to do this, they will go back to build confidence, to communicate with others, and also to explore themselves, their new selves, if we will say this, and to start reflect on what went well and what could be developed. And that will take them, that they will find themselves, even if they did not plan it, that they are role models for others. You know, like many of them will start hearing, you know, like, you're helping us, you're encouraging us, you're giving us strength. So those comments, we will continuously hear them from the narratives that we shared during or through the book. And when they start recognizing those comments from others, then they will start showing or sharing the importance of helping and building capacities. So she might share this knowledge with her daughter. She might start encouraging her colleagues, either in work or neighbors. That would take different forms and different ways. And through the resources that they're having, they would try to sustain what they had built, either through entrepreneurship kind of experiences, or maybe through the community that they are participating or even volunteering with. So there are different ways and different forms. We cannot say that this is a magic answer or this is only a one answer, but each one of them in different place and in different space had tried to develop their own techniques and their own mechanism. For me, I would call it surviving, because that was also a surviving process for them to cope and to adapt and to be flexible. There are many things also to describe within the ecological leadership practices and interactive dynamics with what they're having. And I'm sure that Dr. Khalid, Corinne, Rida, yourself, you would be like to comment on those domains.
Yeah. We also highlighted that the ecological leadership comes into two branches under the umbrella of transformative and transformational practices, which is also, we made the distinction between both transformational and transformative, and how women have demonstrated themselves within these two realms of leadership as being transformative and transformational.
Yep, agree.
Yeah. Also, I would like here to mention to reiterate to what Rania has said, that when we were thinking of this ecological leadership model, we thought that the system does not necessarily meet the needs of these women. So if the system doesn't meet the needs of these women, they should be able to support themselves ecologically.
I don't think that there's a current system that would meet the need of any women, and even including the men, as Dr. Khalid also is with us. So just the concept of if we will accept the current status, that something would not allow us to grow or to develop our skills or even to explore ourselves. And this is what we clearly had listened or had explored within analyzing the interviewees' stories and, you know, the situation that they had been through, and especially within the lens of the epistemology that we were following. Dr. Khalid?
Yeah, it's very important to know that, you know, I want to differentiate this book from other books, you know, so far, is that, you know, we try to move from, like, you know, presenting women stories and describing this reality. So we try to shift and move from the descriptive rule into synthesizing and analyzing what we got so far and trying to understand this in a multifaceted, you know, ecological, you know, lens. So what we can understand from women pathway and, you know, the gifts that they bring and their contribution, this is one too. How we can synthesize, you know, what we got so far into an ecological model where it sees a system within human development and, you know, the subsystem, you know, change on, you know, like maximizing interaction, collaboration, partnership into, you know, the organization, while activate and mobilizing, you know, others throughout an act of transformation and social justice, you know, endeavor. So this is what we tried throughout, you know, to come up with a model that can inform current educational leaders in transforming. And this applies for women and can apply also for men as well. So this is one. And two, this model also can inform like future leader preparation program and professional PD programs, you know, into the leadership in maximizing and enhancing, you know, the human qualities that we can bring into leadership and the multifaceted, you know, understanding of not the rule, but the advocacy and the change up to the level that, you know, seeing this like different positions, you know, as, you know, not just demanding, but rewarding throughout what we are nurturing and, like, you know, the circles that we mobilize and empower, you know, throughout these positions. So, yeah.
It's really important because, you know, while we're introducing this book for the readers and for the audience, it's not kind of an extra book about women education leadership. We really wanted to highlight new lenses and new ideas to start allowing ourselves, it's not the women, because the women are already trying their best in different places and different ways, but it's us that we need to recognize what they're doing. And this would take us to the 7 stages of initiation and implementation, which might be introduced in courses and training programs, while even women with no bachelor degree or no college or higher education degree would also follow the same steps in implementing and developing their projects or their ideas. So within the stories that we had studied and explored, all of them, they had a vision. All of them, they wanted to do something, and they started exploring how to develop their projects and what exactly to do. They tested and they started implementing while they're, you know, seeking how they can look for extra resources and what can be developed and how they can sustain their projects, how they can take it to another level, even if they did not know or did not use those specific terms. So sometimes we label things, either it's this way or no, they don't know, which is incorrect. This is not true. They know, and they might be able to do it even better if we allow them and if we see them doing it into action, learning from their experiences and from our own experiences. Rida, you wanted to comment something, or Corinne?
I just wanted to say that these 7 stages of initiation and implementation need to be deconstructed by the women themselves as they go and as needed. So there is no one recipe. And the road to it, this is the roadmap to their self-exploration, which we called it a model. But it varies from one person or one woman to the other, depending on the needs, on the contexts, on the scopes, on where they want to head off or on the road.
Exactly, Corinne. We know that 1 hour and a half would never be able to summarize all of the work that we had done in each of the chapters, and even with the comments and all the main ideas that we already had highlighted within the book. We just wanted from this discussion to share some key messages and to share what happened behind the scenes, or the some of the points that we really wanted the readers and the audience to start exploring with us, to open this dialogue, and also to start having a different conversation while we're dealing about women education leadership, as we had introduced, either regarding their communities or their formal, informal roles, not only in school leadership, also regarding motherhood and the great influence we have. And that, by the way, before you start, Dr. Khalid, and talking of future research and some of the conclusions, when we talked about motherhood, we did not only mention the ladies who had daughters or sons. It's not that concept. It's way beyond that. And sometimes we read in the in literature where they're describing that mostly we have females working in primary schools or in kindergarten because of the motherhood component and having those kind of caring ideas. So when we're talking about motherhood, it's not kind of biological aspect. It's more than that of the caring and the you know, this kind of sharing sense that we're emphasizing, hoping that everyone would see this contribution. Yes, Dr. Khalid.
Yeah, so in moving forward to what next? So, I mean, there's a lot to be done in, like, you know, all the needed areas to, to look at in understanding women leadership. One is to look into, and especially like in the COVID, where we are like, facing a global pandemic, and we have also another environmental, challenges, including, I treat the racism as environmental, challenge the displacement and refugees, challenges and issues. We need to look into women advocacy and activism, their own well-being, and the collective well-being. It is very important. It has been presented itself and sparked, especially in the global pandemic. This is one issue that we can look at. The other is women leadership within the parameters of sustainable development goal. How we extinguish global poverty in all forms, and promote gender equality in all areas of social, economic, and public life, while understanding the different cultural features and the different, social needs. So our lens are, coming from within and not, adopting Orientalist lens, whereas as if the knowledge rests in one space and imposed, to the other space, and then explore women leaders, avenues through which that they can mobilize resources in order to move forward in their personal, professional, and communal spaces. So yeah, and I'd like to stop here, and unless one of my colleagues want also to add to this.
There are many ideas we thought, within concluding the book or the conclusion chapter, that there are lots of efforts needed regarding women education leadership. With respect of all the previous efforts and contributions, we still need to explore this more and to provide more opportunities. Different methodologies need to be used to analyze, and definitely we need to make sure that we're voicing the experiences from different contexts and different places, and not only to focus on just a specific component or dimension with neglecting the other holistic approach, as you had mentioned, Dr. Khalid. I'm sure that this had been a very enlightening experience for us all, regardless if you're saying, Corinne, that you are encouraging us to do another book. That's something that we're sure all are keen to. Rida, you're jumping to say something. Go ahead. You're muted. You are muted. Rida.
I was saying that probably the book would be criticized because we did not focus on the policies that inhibit or the systems that inhibit. But the whole point was about the women themselves rather than about the systems or the policies. So I just wanted to clarify this. If we want to do another book, we can see the women's leadership from a policies and system practices. So that would be another idea to explore. But this book was not about the policies that inhibit or facilitate. It was about them as women and their voices.
Corinne?
I'm just nodding and approving and thanking all of you, amazing team, for the opportunity and all the learning along the way. So I just wanted, in Ghana, we do rounds of applause. So that's what I wanted to do.
Thank you.
And then Rwanda,
It was a pleasure.
if we have Rwandan listening, we send flowers. At least that's what they did when we were there.
Yeah. Yeah, it was amazing to work with all of you, honestly. I've learned so much along the way. In the midst of very difficult moments in isolation. Hopefully we will meet face to face. Just for those who don't know us very well, I haven't met the team face to face for the past 2 years, and we were able to make it happen.
Yeah, but we keep the goodwill And I think our goodwill, arrives. It's been similarly, like I can tell you that Rania and I, made a lot, but it was like before our like first, let's say physical meeting. We've been like meeting online up to the level that, I explored that, she had a family in Texas. That I could tap on and like call, etc. So I'm in a kind of communication with her like eldest brother. So sometimes the world is smaller than we think it is.
Yeah.
So
I know that,
and
yeah, unfortunately, we're coming to an end. So we're encouraging whoever's watching via Facebook or our attendees with us, if you have comments or questions regarding the book or regarding our contributions. This is not the first book for Dr. Khalid, for sure. You can go to his website and explore all the amazing books, and congratulations on the award, Dr. Khalid. Hopefully that this book also would be awarded in a specific stage and translated.
And Rania, I don't know who submitted, until now, I don't know who submitted,
the nomination.
Yeah, the nomination. Really, I don't know. Like people were asking me, I don't know. So yeah, so it is.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
For
thank
the
you.
Congratulations, Professor Khalid.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just received one question, just tips for regarding women education leadership training programs. If you like to add any recommendation or to highlight anything, because we received one question regarding that.
Yes, it is. I mean, if you look into the last chapter, we proposed like a model that can inform, like current educational leaders, throughout, different, actions that, could be taken. And also it can, inform professional, development, endeavors. So yes, in the book, last chapter, please read the model that we proposed, and you would find, valuable, different conceptual, actions that could be taken into mobilizing both in the system, within the system, and beyond the system.
Yep, definitely training programs would require much kind of training. If we will add to what Dr. Khalid had mentioned, is just don't provide one recipe, because that does not work. Women has different roles, and they face different situations and different issues at their personal level or within their communities. So just help them to explore themselves more and to build their self-confidence, so that they can communicate clearly about their needs and their roles, how they can contribute with each other. The model definitely would help. And within the chapter 7, we also have an evaluation process that we highly recommend, if that would be also implemented within any kind of implementation for this model. But we still highlight that we need to explore and see the needs in each context, so that it would be customized more than one size fits all, which doesn't work in all situations, and specifically with women. Rida, you were nodding.
Yeah, I wanted to say that we're happy to train if anyone is interested, and we deconstruct the model accordingly, because I think there is no, as I said earlier, and Rania just mentioned that there is no one recipe. So every community, every context has its own tailored PD, if you wish to say, but these are the guidelines that need to be deconstructed accordingly. Yeah.
Yep. One last comment, if you like, before we end our discussion for launching for today.
Me?
Who would like to?
I love you all, and I loved working with you.
Thank you.
I hope people would enjoy reading it, and it would be a learned lesson message.
Yep. Corinne?
I echo the sentiments, and by all means, we also want to hear feedback, what we can do differently, or just add, or future ideas and collaboration perhaps. So
Yeah, yeah.
everybody is welcome to reach to any of us. We're sort of like the team. So you reach out one, it's gonna go to all the other members.
Yes, yes,
It's a
yes,
very
yes.
domino effect.
Yes, yes. So yes, thanks for like sending these vibes. And I can see, you know, we learn a lot from like reviewers' comments, you know, like previous reviewers' comments to the different books that like I arrived with. I recall that, you know, with my past women leadership book in 2013, where, okay, you presented like different, you know, and like rich stories, but it was not closed. We needed like a round table to close the book. And this is exactly what we have done with this book. We had set all the huge, you know, data and the narratives. You know, I don't want to call it data because data in Latin is dadum and dadum is given. So this data was not given. I say women voices. We tried to synthesize these voices and come up with like a model to close the book. And hopefully we will see some, you know, reviews, future reviews about the book that we can like learn from, and like, you know, this can inform also our like future, you know, research projects and contributions. Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. For me, it was a great honor, first of all, since the day one we met Dr. Khaled working on those different projects and especially working with this amazing team. Today, I wore two hats, Women Ed, MENA, and also being part of this project. Thank you, Zainab, from Women Ed MENA, for organizing this and being behind the scenes. We really appreciate your contribution and all the team, and providing this platform to share some of the ideas regarding the book. And with the you know, amazing team and amazing colleagues. We miss you. We also miss Trista. We hope that next time we will all be together so that we have lots of contribution and thoughts. And I'm sure, Doctor, on behalf of you all, we also would like to thank all the amazing contributors, scholars that had endorsed our book and also wrote kind of acknowledgements. And this is something that we're really keen to hear feedback and discussions from everyone.
Yeah.
It's just the start. And you had also highlighted an idea, Rida, that the next book might be a guide or a manual of how to train and how to deal with those situations.
Deconstruct these 7 steps into personal needs.
Yeah, yeah.
So
you know,
that-
one of the things that I needed like also to make sure that the people that endorse the book are getting a copy, you know, of the book. So it's very important for, you know, because they supported the book and they put their like, you know, positive vibe into this project, and we need, you know, our thanks should come, and, you know, with like sending out a copy. So I asked Routledge to send, you know, each, you know, so I collected their, you know, addresses, and but this is a great idea, Rania and Rida. Yeah,
and
you know,
sure
I
that
love it.
we also had written in the acknowledgement, and a big thank you for all the ladies that had shared their stories, those kind of real life events, incidents that they faced, and they were so generous with sharing all these details with us. A big thank you for everyone. We hope and we look forward for future projects and hearing feedback and comments, and thank you for everyone who attended or who joined us or who will be watching us in the future.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.